Hi listeners, I'm Anna Kaszycki, world champion rower with 3 international degrees and now youth mentor and coach. This is the Aspire Beyond Greatness podcast, where I share inspiring individual stories to empower you to achieve your goals and future life pursuits. If you enjoyed the podcast today, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Have a great day, and remember, go after what you want. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Aspire Beyond Greatness podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Marney Purna. Thank you so much for joining us today, Marney.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. And to give our audience some background, Marney is the author of Women's Health Educator, and she is the owner and founder and principal consultant of Kaszycki Natural Therapies. So quite an interesting and exciting background to talk about with us today. And to kick us off, I would love to kind of reflect on your younger years and for you to kind of tap into, if you can remember when you were 14 years old, and if you had one piece of advice that you could give to yourself at that time, what do you think it would be?
My 14 and 15 years were not the best time of my life. I was quite ill with a sickness called, I ended up with rheumatic fever and spent several months in hospital. And rheumatic fever came through an infection from tonsillitis, and the bug got into my brain, and it actually affected my motor neuron capacity. So if I was walking somewhere, one leg would fall over and trip me and things like that, or I'd be sitting in a classroom and my hands would fly up in the air. So it wasn't a really comfortable time in my life, and the only thing I really know I wanted to do back then was get away from school, because the peer pressure at that time wasn't the best, and because I was isolated through illness, it was even worse. So I hated school, and my goal in life at that time was to get a job, which I achieved by 15. So
So it was kind of, it sounds like, to progress to the next thing a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was to get away from, I didn't mind school. I suppose I was okay at study, but I hated being there. And for me back then, all I could see my future being is in a job where I didn't have to conform or fit in with the people of my own age. I've always gravitated to older people. So I've all had mentors and older aunts in my circle that I felt much more comfortable with than my own age group.
Definitely. I think, that's a really challenging time. It's sort of year 8, year 9, and you're going through some things. And I know for a fact I did not have great grades in school, and I was pretty ready to leave as well. But it sounds really challenging with the health condition that you had. How was managing that for you at that age?
I didn't have to manage it because I was in hospital. So I had to, because of the rheumatic fever, it affects your heart. So you had to be kept really, really quiet. But also, too, I lost all capacity to direct my muscles to do what I wanted them to do. So for me, one of my major, not a challenge, but one of my major not goals in life, but I remember Mum and Dad coming to visit me in hospital. And that night, I'd actually been able to put toothpaste on a toothbrush. Now, that seems ridiculous to get excited about that, but for 6 months, I hadn't been able to. So that was like a huge moment in my life, like winning gold in the lotto. And I remember racing outside, because hospitals back then were a lot more constrained and regulated as well, and shouting out to the whole waiting room, I've put toothpaste on the toothbrush. And they all sort of looked at me and my age and my size and thinking, well, that's pretty exciting, isn't it? But for me, it was, and it taught me to really appreciate those simple and basic things of life. So I think that was one of the gifts I was given back then, was to appreciate being able to do some of those basic things, like put a key in a lock or just do things like that.
Definitely. It sounds like you really have to kind of tap into what you can be grateful for when you're going through something like that, instead of just thinking, this isn't great, I don't enjoy it, how can I move forward?
But you didn't have those thoughts I didn't have those thoughts at 14 and 15. I was just taking day at a time and live for the day that I didn't have to stay in bed to go to the toilet and things like that. But I remember doing a lot of drawing back then as well. I used to love the artwork, and that's one thing I could do all the time. So I used to do some really nice copy drawing. So whenever I put paint near anything, I lost marks. But if I just stuck with pen and ink or something, I did really good.
Oh, awesome. Great. I'd love to know, Marney, how did you decide on the career that you have now?
Well, it kind of found me rather than me deciding to go for it. So I left school at 15. I got a job. I was in the men's underwear department at David Jones at Christmas. That was my first job. So that was,
Oh, wow.
fire. But I had also been accepted into administration scholarship. So I was working at David Jones and going to different departments for 2 months to see where I wanted to end up. And I ended up in the statistics area, where I looked after the figures and paperwork for a couple of the David Jones stores. From then I did what a lot of us did in those years. We moved on to a government job because it was more secure. And then I got married at 22 and left the government job at 26 to have our family. And I was very lucky. I was able to be a stay-at-home mum. So I didn't have to work. So I had little jobs in that time. So I suppose I've just been always blessed to have had a stable background and household. And my husband earned the money and I could stay home and look after the children. So I was a stay-at-home mum for 15 years. Then just at a time when that was coming to the end, because once they get to high school, they don't need your help as much, my couple of family members got ill and we couldn't get, well, they didn't get help mainstream. So it started my journey into looking for alternative assistance for medical challenges. And I discovered kinesiology, went and did a weekend workshop, and it hasn't stopped. So it filled a niche and a need at the time, but it also filled a passion for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you really love helping people, and that's what you're able to do. So I love that.
Having left school at 15, I then enrolled in school at 46 in the middle of menopause. So don't advise anyone to keep doing that unless they haven't had the opportunity to do it beforehand. But that was a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
So, I would tell my 14-year-old self, maybe find your passion earlier.
If timing is something that you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's perfect. Like we said before, that you're able to find that now and sort of do that. So yeah, that's great. And it sounds like you've learned a lot along the way. What do you think has been your greatest lesson in life?
I think one of them is to care and to be a caring person. So I don't think you can ever go wrong with that. So I seem to always attract people that need assistance, whether that be family people or strangers. So I'm sort of in a caring role now with regards to health. And I also know, and I probably didn't acknowledge it back at 14, but I do know very much now that education or knowledge is empowering. So to move forward or to gain advancement for the future, you've got to have knowledge about what you're wanting to do. Like I now drink knowledge. Like I love reading all about different things and gaining information about that because it empowers you to make better choices.
Definitely. Would you say that now that you've gone back to school, you're sort of expanding the knowledge that you have on what you want to do, and it's sort of directing you closer towards your passion?
Yeah. I also believe a Marneyism, because I use a few Marneyisms in my clinic and in my talks, that our life is like a yin-yang circle. So we have our experiences that we live through, and we have the area where we gain knowledge through information and education. And the two of those fit together like a yin-yang symbol, which is that, the Chinese philosophy of balance.
Yeah, that's great.
Constant state of change. So that change, I believe, where the two meet, the two lines of the two halves meet, is the wisdom of your heart. And that wisdom of your heart enables you to make better choices down the track if a previous choice hasn't worked as well. Because there's always a pearl in whatever you've come through, even though it might not be the best time in your life. There will be one gold pearl in there that you can use at a later time in life if similar things happen. So you can draw on your previous experiences to help you make a better choice down the track.
Yeah, I love that. I was actually talking to someone yesterday a little bit about that, how the yin and the yang and how that works. And, it's similar to like light and darkness and just the changing of the seasons and things that everything helps us become. Well, it has to be a balance of both, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. In Chinese philosophy, the yin yang is balance and harmony. And you can't have one without the other. And there's a bit of each in both sides. So when it's black and white, there's a bit of white and there's a bit of white in the black. So you can have those harmony to feel better and to cope better.
Perfect. And kind of going into that a little bit, I'm interested to know, obviously in life we, have moments of where things really good that happen, and then sometimes where obviously we go through some challenges.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know, what has been your greatest setback?
Greatest setback? Well, I grew up in a household, we came from a poor family, so my dad had to work long, hard hours. He was a shift worker, and Mum looked after the family. And when I was in about grade 6, My dad had an accident on a farm and the farmer wasn't insured, and my dad lost most of his hand and also his profession. Now, back then, and we're talking, well, I'm 60 now, so it's, over 40 years ago, there wasn't the support around then that there is now. So the family unit had to pull together to survive. So Dad didn't have sick leave or holiday pay or anything like that, so he had no money coming in. We lived in Housing Commission homes, which meant they needed to be paid rent. At the same time, my mum she had to go and start stacking shelves at night time to try and bring some money in, and a large tin of dog food fell down and hit her in the breast, and that caused this lump, and she had to go to the doctor about the lump. Now, remember, I'm really quite young here, so I would have been under 10, and there was 4 of us, and the lump was diagnosed initially as advanced cancer, and Mum was told she had less than 6 months to live. So her idea of resilience was, how do I ensure my 4 children can cope? So she taught us basic things like you could have a 3-course meal, which is tinned soup, basic meat and veggies, and tinned fruit. She did a 3-course meal. So she taught us to start doing those basic things and to pull together. So that was my biggest challenge in those years. But that taught us how to blend as a family and how to get through things. And when Mum asked for help from the government, I remember they sent a man round to take the 2 younger boys. That was the only assistance they were going to do. And my mum chased them out of the house with a broom.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't splitting up the family. There had to be other ways. So that did teach you resilience. It taught you that, the money doesn't grow on trees, and that you do have to sometimes do things that you wouldn't want to do. Like, we had to work as a family. We used to go and pick beetroots and onions and stuff as a family. So we were only young children, but you had to be there and you had to be involved because the family needed the income. So that was one of my biggest resilience tools for my future self.
Yeah, it sounds like your mum was someone who is kind of like that fisherman quote, where it's not just, teaching someone how to fish and then you doing it for them, but then they have to learn for themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, she obviously taught you some really good skills that you've carried on with you.
Yeah, doesn't mean any of us liked it, but yeah. She did what she could to ensure that we were going to be okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Dad was in hospital for a long time.
It sounds like a difficult time for your family, because they're the people that you most look up to when you're a kid.
Yes.
Having that support is really important. And on the flip side of that, what would you say you're most proud of?
Most proud of? Oh, probably my children. I've got 3 young adult children, and 2 of them now have got their own families, and I'm very proud of seeing them establish their own little family units and buy houses and grow and be nice people. So that's something I'm very proud of. And I'm very proud of being an author. When I wrote my book and got it published, I was over the moon. So awesome. I've got a lot of family background of authorship in my family, so I never thought I'd be one of them, especially having left school when I did. So it was a huge achievement to have written my own solo book.
For sure. When you sort of look at your children, you said that you're really proud of them. Is there certain things that you see in their family that you might have taught them when you were parenting them? Or is it more just the idea that they've sort of grown up and you're really proud to see that they're a part of your family and they have their own family?
I think because we've been able to give them a stable background, that has helped them be stable people too, and they're all kind. So that to me is a big thing. Kindness and fairness are really huge in my list of attributes, and I see them all being very kind. Doesn't mean they don't have their little, rough patches, they do, but on the whole, their family, the unity of the family is very high, and loyalty is very high in their list of attributes. And I'm sure they see that coming from a stable home too.
Yeah, that's what you want when you're growing up, is to have people that can be there for you and support you, and then be able to replicate that when you're a parent, I think, is something
you don't always realise too when you've got that yourself. You're not always aware that that's not the norm. Like, you just think everyone has a house like that. So in my later life, I do a lot of volunteer work in women's shelters and for the people that are less fortunate than I ever was. So it's quite a shock sometimes to see what they consider norm. And I suppose too, when I balance my life, because we didn't come from that security all the time, I see that you can get by. You've got to build tools of resilience, and you do that. You're not defined by your circumstances. You're defined by how you live your life, regardless of your circumstances. So just because you might have had a challenging childhood doesn't mean you have to be a challenging adult.
Yeah, that's a great.
We have to make choices, and our choice is our own responsibility and our own business. And I think a lot of people tend to just say, oh, it's all because of this that I'm like this. Well, no, you could have been like that and still made different choices.
Yeah, I think the idea of that we're constantly changing is really important, and just that when you stop to change and you stop growing, that's when your life sort of finishes, or at least you're not making the most of it. And so I think, when you're young and you're going through different things and you're wondering what you want to do, it's okay to chop and change and maybe try and figure yourself out instead of feeling that you have to be a certain way.
I often share on my talks that it's like making a cake. You might have decided to make a chocolate cake, but you haven't put the cocoa in. So it doesn't matter what you do with that cake, unless you put cocoa in the next time, you're still not going to get a chocolate cake. So your life's the same. So if you go through something and you didn't like it, you have to be able to step back and say, you know what, that's not my best option. What do I have to change, or what has to change in my life to get a better option? Because it can be done in steps. And, as I said before, you gather those pearls of wisdom as you're growing. And when you stop growing and when you stop changing, what you were saying then, you stagnate. And that's not good either. So there always has to be change. Water has to flow to be clean and fresh. It eventually evaporates. But before it evaporates, it goes all slimy and yuck. So our life can be like that as well. And it doesn't have to always be exciting. I mean, people are looking for excitement and adventure all the time. Sometimes adventure is just going out in your garden.
Yeah.
Climbing a mountain, Unless the climbing the mountain rocks your socks, But there's times where your adventure, make your adventure where you are. Look at outside in the eyes of a child. They see a caterpillar and they think it's a snake. It's exciting to have little ones around you, because the awe and the wonder of life for them is huge. And yet they're basic everyday things.
It's so exciting. Another thing I've spoken about recently with some other people was just the idea that younger people have a really good perspective as well. Kind of what you were saying about going out into the garden and seeing something and it might be another. And I think, it should be validated, their opinion, and it's good to ask questions and be curious about life. And so, that's a good one.
I see a lot of youth making a lot of change in the world, and it's amazing. They have an opinion, they have a voice. They've been taught to have a voice. I think that might be one of the biggest differences between when I was brought up to when we brought our own children up, is we did give them choice. We would ask their opinion from a very early age, even if it was just, do you want to wear this pair of pants or that pair of pants? What we forget sometimes is we've taught them to have a voice. When they have a voice that's not congruent with what we're doing at the time, we forget that we've sort of invited that, because they have been taught from a very early age to have an opinion. It's about being mindful about other people's feelings as well, so you can have your own opinion and be kind with the way you express it at the same time.
That kind of reminds me of the idea of being gender neutral, so parents not giving their kids something pink to wear if they're girls or blue if they're boys. It's like, well, maybe yellow.
I'm not quite into that aspect. I just believe that it's more about, what do you want to wear today? So generally, I think we're going down a rabbit hole with the gender neutral thing. I think we have to identify. So we'd be individual rather than gender neutral. Be your own person.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but make a stand, make a statement one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be what you want to be, right? And what you need to be for yourself. I want to share this idea with you. And that's that from the moment that you wake up in the morning and as you go about your day, doing various different things for your business and your family and for your self-care, things like that, to the minute that you go to bed at night, I believe that everyone turns up with a different skill set and values. So some people could be really positive, some really genuine or confident. What do you believe that you bring when you turn up?
Hopefully confidence and happiness. I like to be happy. I also like to look for the diamonds in the pack as well. So, I'm like everyone. I have challenging days and times, but you've also got to be able to step back from that challenge and say, okay, what can I be positive about that helps me move forward? So I'm not I'm not that positive that you want to knock my lock off all the time. You know how people are so happy and excited all the time? I'm not that person, but on the whole, I feel I'm happy and kind in my daily day routines.
It sounds balanced.
I'm in Libra, so I am balanced.
It's good though. I think if you see someone who's too happy all the time, you start to wonder if they're taking happy pills or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's work-life balance. And
Everything's a choice. And
understand
I actually pick an attitude for a year as well. On the 1st of January every year, I pick a word. That is my attitude for the year. And it's just so it's a word that you'll end up using, and it's always fun.
That's awesome. I really like that. It's almost like a focus point for the year.
Yeah.
I hope they're really good words.
Oh, they are. They're brilliant words. So I'm just trying to think what this year's word was. I had a lot of trouble this year because I've been awesome. I've been happy. I've been delicious. I've been blessed. I've been magical. Last year's was magical. And this year I was growth was one of my words. So I'm growing all the time. And that helps me then to have a vision of more than just what's in front of me as well. So, but it challenged me this year to pick one word.
Mm-hmm. So you just sort of think it up, or is
I sit down and ponder on it. I don't meditate so much, but I like to use the 1st of January generally to make my vision board. Now my vision board includes myself, my business, my family, whatever's happening in my life. So for me, that's all part, because I'm a small business owner, I work from home. My family's part and parcel of my business, and they kind of come first as well. And I sit there and I ponder on a word that I feel will be a great word for the year. And growth was definitely one of them this year, was growing in a different way, but growing at the same time.
That's great. I think, it gives you a good thing to focus on and keep present in your mind as you're working through things throughout the year. Yeah, perfect. And what would you say inspires you every day?
Just life. I love life. I love watching what's going on. I love seeing the change that's occurring all around me and watching people grow, and just, life in general inspires me.
Change is perfect. And who would you say has been your biggest supporter?
Believe it or not, my mum. My mum believed in me from the get-go. She was my groupie. She'd come to all my talks and sit there and remind me if I went wrong and things like that. She was my biggest supporter. My family are, my husband and children are as well, my daughter especially. But mum was different. Like she'd been there forever, all my life. So she was always there supporting me.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference having those people.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just want to finish it off by thanking you so much for joining us today and for your time. And I want to share the 3 things that I was able to take away, and hopefully our audience has as well, which is, first of all, just your genuine passion for caring for others. And I think that it makes a big difference to the people around us in our community. So it's really important. And how we spoke about knowledge is power. So the idea that, immerse yourself in different things, whether it's a class or, just being interested in things and looking into them a little bit more. And also just to be an individual, be who you are, and just enjoy that. I think that was great. So thank you so much for your time today.
That's right, Anna. Thank you so much for interviewing me and allowing me to share with your audience as well. So
perfect.
It's been lovely.
And is there a way that our audience can connect with you?
They can. They've got my website, which is www.kinnique.com.
Perfect.
And I'm on Facebook as well, so Facebook Connect.
Yeah.
You'll find me there. I'm all over. So
awesome. Well, make sure to check out Marnie's page and her Facebook, and stay tuned for another episode of Aspire Beyond Greatness.